We continue to follow developments stemming from that earthquake in Japan. The USGS says the quake came in as a 6.8 magnitude and that at this hour there is no tsunami threat.
It's only the first month of the new year, barely over yet, and another massive 6.8 earthquake shocked a part of Japan, even possibly rocked one, if not the world's largest caldera. What does this mean for the country? Another phenomenon leaving some of its citizens traumatized while others thrive. Even massive earthquake. On January 13th, 2025, a powerful 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck southwestern Japan. This significant seismic event occurred near the Ira Caldera, one of the world's largest calderas, highlighting the region's susceptibility to strong earthquakes. The earthquake triggered a rare tsunami warning for both Miyazaki and Kochi prefectures, underscoring the potential for cascading natural disasters in this area. Japan, situated at the convergence of several tectonic plates, experiences frequent seismic activity. This earthquake serves as a stark reminder of the importance of earthquake preparedness and the constant vigilance required in regions prone to such natural hazards. The country's well-developed early warning systems and stringent building codes played a crucial role in mitigating the impact of this event, demonstrating the importance of proactive measures in minimizing the consequences of natural disasters. The most earthquake in Japan resulted in casualties and significant damage. Reports indicated injuries and some fatalities, primarily due to building collapses and falling debris. Infrastructure damage was widespread, including power outages, transportation disruptions, and damage to roads and bridges. The tsunami warning, though ultimately not resulting in a major wave, caused widespread panic and disruption. Japan nevertheless urged the public to stay away from coastal waters. Tsunami can strike repeatedly. Please do not enter the sea or go near coastal areas, the agency said on social media. The quake, centered at a depth of 18.6 miles, shook a wide area in Kyushu, the southwestern main island, Japan's meteorological agency said. NHK TV footage showed moving traffic and well-lit streets, meaning that electric power was still working. No problems were detected at the various monitoring posts for nuclear plants in the area. Japan is frequently hit by earthquakes due to its location along the Ring of Fire, an arc of volcanoes and fault lines in the Pacific Basin. Experts at the meteorological agency met late Monday to gauge how the latest temblor may be related to the so-called Nankai Trough quakes, but decided not to take any extraordinary measures for the time being. The term refers to a wide region believed to be prone to periodic major quakes. The nearest caldera. The January 13, 2025 earthquake in Japan occurred near the Ira Caldera. While the specific impact of this earthquake on the Ira Caldera's volcanic activity is still being assessed, it is important to note that significant seismic events can potentially trigger dangerous aspects. Earthquakes can induce stress changes within a volcano, potentially triggering eruptions or increasing volcanic activity. The seismic waves from the earthquake could have disturbed the magma within the Ira Caldera, potentially increasing the risk of future eruptions. Scientists will be closely monitoring the Ira Caldera for any signs of increased volcanic activity following the earthquake. This includes monitoring seismic activity, ground deformation, and gas emissions. Wait, what's caldera anyway? Calderas in Japan. Imagine a volcano that's been going about its business, spewing out lava, ash, and gases over thousands or even millions of years. Then one day, there's a massive eruption so large that it empties a significant part of the volcano's magma chamber. With the internal support gone, the top of the volcano literally collapses inward, creating a giant crater-like feature. That, in a nutshell, is a caldera. They're often called volcanic bowls because they look like huge depressions in the ground. Over time, these bowls can fill with water to form lakes, or they remain as vast, crater-like landscapes. Some can even hide entire towns or farmland inside them, which is exactly what you'll see in certain parts of Japan. So why does Japan have many calderas? Isn't that scary? Japan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an area around the edge of the Pacific Ocean where several tectonic plates collide, shift, and generally make life geologically interesting. This region is notorious for both earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. because multiple plates, the Pacific Plate, the Philippine Sea Plate, the Eurasian Plate, etc., converge near Japan. Magma finds convenient pathways up toward the surface in many spots. Over the centuries, huge volcanic complexes formed, and with major eruptions come the collapsed structures we call calderas. These are some famous calderas in Japan. Aso Caldera. Aso Caldera in Kumamoto Prefecture, Kyushu, is one of those places that makes you feel like you've stepped into another world. Imagine this huge bowl-shaped depression formed ages ago by a series of powerful volcanic eruptions, so powerful that they collapsed the ground into a giant crater. Today, you can drive right through it, spotting villages, farms, and roads dotted across vast, rolling fields. The rim of the caldera rises in the distance, encircling the entire area like ancient walls. It's wild to think that where people now live and plant crops was once the scene of massive volcanic upheaval. At the heart of Aso Caldera, you'll find Mt. Nakadake, an active volcano that still rumbles to remind everyone nature's in charge. On a calm day, you might see a gentle plume of smoke drifting from the crater, or even a milky turquoise lake formed by volcanic gases and water. Local officials keep a close watch, so if volcanic activity ramps up, hiking trails and crater viewpoints might close temporarily. But on most days, visitors hop on buses or drive private cars up winding roads to peer into the crater itself. It's an incredible sensory experience. Sights, smells, and the distant hiss of volcanic steam all around. Living inside a massive caldera has its perks. The soil is famously fertile, so the surrounding farmland bursts with vibrant crops, and ranchers raise prized akaushi, red beef cattle. The area is also a hotspot, literally, for onsen, Japanese hot springs, where you can soak in mineral-rich waters while gazing up at the looming caldera rim. Whether you're there for the landscapes, the local eats, or just a relaxing getaway, Aso Caldera offers a one-of-a-kind encounter with Japan's natural power. After all, how many places let you eat a farm-fresh meal, then watch an active volcano puffing away in the background? It's a uniquely Kyushu experience you won't soon forget. Ira Caldera, Kagoshima Prefecture, Kyushu. Ira Caldera in Kagoshima Prefecture, Kyushu, might not be the first place you think of when planning a Japan trip, but it definitely should be on any volcano lover's list. Formed by a colossal eruption about 22,000 years ago, the caldera is now mostly filled by Kagoshima Bay, also called Kinko Bay, around which the city of Kagoshima is laid out. Standing on the waterfront, you'd never guess you're inside a massive volcanic depression. That said, the area's past and ongoing activity is ever present, with hot springs, steamy vents, and occasionally rumbling earth, reminding everyone that nature's in charge. Rising dramatically from the bay is Sakurajima, one of Japan's most active volcanoes and a direct product of the Ira Caldera's volcanic system. You'll often see plumes of ash drifting from Sakurajima's peak, and local residents stay well versed in ash cleanup routines. Despite this fiery neighbor, life in Kagoshima goes on. Ferries shuttle back and forth to Sakurajima's dock, tourists flock to onsen, hot springs, and locals grow delicious produce in soil enriched by volcanic minerals. There's a certain duality here, serene bayside living contrasted with the daily hum of a living volcano. Visiting the Ira Caldera region offers more than just a peek at nature's power. Kagoshima is known for its laid-back vibe, mouth-watering sweet potatoes and shochu distilled from them, and stunning coastal views. You can spend the day exploring Sakurajima by rental bike, grabbing local specialties like Kagoshima ramen, and then unwind in a seaside onsen while gazing out over the caldera's rim. It's a reminder that even though Ira Caldera started with a bang, quite literally, it's now home to a thriving community that has embraced the area's fiery personality as part of its everyday charm. Caldera Lakes in Hokkaido and Honshu. When people think of Japan's natural scenery, they might picture cherry blossoms or Mount Fuji, but some of the country's most captivating sights are actually the caldera lakes scattered across Hokkaido and Honshu. A caldera lake forms when a volcano's chamber collapses after a massive eruption, eventually filling up with rainwater or melted snow. In Hokkaido, you have stunners like Lake Shikotsu and Lake Toya. Lake Shikotsu, known for its remarkable clarity, sits within Shikotsu-Toya National Park, an area bustling with hot springs, hiking trails, and dense forests. Meanwhile, Lake Toya, encircled by mountains and famed for its mild climate, it never freezes, even in winter, offers a perfect mix of relaxation and dramatic volcanic scenery. Farther south in Honshu, Lake Tawada is another jewel in Japan's caldera crown. Straddling the prefectures of Aomori and Akita, this deep blue lake is surrounded by thick forests that burst into fiery reds and oranges every autumn, drawing crowds of leaf peepers. What's cool is how accessible Lake Tawada's natural beauty is. Winding roads and hiking trails lead you to jaw-dropping viewpoints, and nearby hot springs let you soak in mineral-rich waters while gazing at volcanic landscapes. It's a spot where you can kayak in the morning, slurp hearty local dishes like Tawada barayaki, beef and onion stir-fry, at lunch, and still have time for a tranquil stroll under the canopy of lakeside trees. Though these lakes might look calm on the surface, their geological origins speak of Japan's fiery underbelly. Volcanic forces shaped them over centuries, and that same volcanic energy now fuels hot springs and supports unique ecosystems. Locals have long harnessed the fertility of volcanic soil for farming, and visitors show up to soak in both the scenic views and the onsen. Whether you're drawn to Hokkaido's raw, rugged landscapes or Honshu's colorful foliage and cultural sites, caldera lakes are perfect reminders that some of the most peaceful places can be born from nature's most dramatic events. Fun fact, the biggest caldera is not in Japan, but in another island country in Asia. Guess that country. The largest caldera and Japan. When we talk about massive volcanic features around the world, names like Yellowstone or Toba often pop into our heads. But have you heard about the Aso Caldera? Not many people have. This gigantic caldera, often cited as the largest in the world, lies hidden beneath the waves in the Philippine Sea. It's so huge that it's almost hard to believe it stayed off our radar for so long. Yet, here we are, with an underwater wonder that's sparking the curiosity of geologists and volcano buffs alike. Now, what exactly is the Aso Caldera? Imagine an enormous circular depression on the ocean floor, formed by a supervolcano explosion ages ago. Apalaki means giant lord in Filipino mythology, which is fitting because it's truly enormous. About 150 kilometers across, it's located on the Benham Rise, also known as the Philippine Rise, east of Luzon in the Philippines. Being underwater, it's not as easy to study as, say, the dramatic cone of Mount Fuji or the colorful pools of Yellowstone. Scientists rely on seafloor mapping and submarine expeditions to unlock its secrets, and so far, it's been an exciting journey into Earth's volcanic past. But let's connect the dots. How does something deep under the Philippine Sea possibly link to earthquakes in Japan? Well, the key lies in plate tectonics, the endlessly fascinating but sometimes confusing jigsaw puzzle of Earth's crust. The Aso Caldera sits on the Philippine Sea plate, which rubs shoulders, or edges to be more precise, with other major tectonic plates, including the Pacific plate. Japan, located in the north of this region, is basically a hotspot of seismic activity because several plates, like the Pacific plate, Philippine Sea plate, and the Eurasian plate, are all converging or sliding past one another in that area. When tectonic plates collide or scrape against each other, they build up stress. Eventually, that stress releases in the form of earthquakes. Japan, being in the crosshairs of all this tectonic action, experiences frequent and sometimes devastating quakes. While Aso Caldera itself is not known for triggering these quakes directly, it's not a daily rumbling, active volcano in the traditional sense. It's part of the broader, super-complex geology under the ocean that shapes how these plates move. The entire region is part of the so-called Ring of Fire, a nickname for the ring-shaped zone around the Pacific Ocean, where most of the world's earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur. Some researchers think studying the Aso Caldera, its size, shape, and volcanic layers, could help us better understand the seismic and volcanic activity in the region, including areas that affect Japan. For instance, if scientists figure out more about how and when this massive caldera formed, they might get clues about the geologic processes that led to today's plate boundaries and the stress points that cause earthquakes. Who knows? Maybe future research on Apalaki will offer fresh insights into earthquake prediction or volcanic hazards, which could benefit countries like Japan that are constantly keeping an eye on seismic risks. In short, the Apalaki caldera is an awesome testament to Earth's dramatic and sometimes explosive history. Even though it's chilling at the bottom of the sea, it's still connected to a much bigger tectonic story that plays out across East and Southeast Asia, a story that includes the frequent earthquakes we see in Japan. As research continues and technology improves, we'll likely learn even more about this giant lord under the ocean and how it ties into the restless dance of the Earth's crust. And who knows, maybe one day it will become as famous in conversation about megavolcanoes as Yellowstone and Toba, just with a cool underwater twist. So, you've got these gigantic collapsed volcano structures. How do they relate to earthquakes? The straightforward answer is that both are fueled by the same tectonic processes. In Japan, the movement of tectonic plates can cause different shakes. When magma shifts beneath a volcano, it can create swarms of small quakes. If the pressure builds up significantly, it might result in an eruption, potentially leading, over geological timescales, to a caldera formation if the eruption is large enough. Large fault lines near volcanic systems can trigger significant earthquakes. These quakes don't necessarily mean the volcano will erupt, but if the volcano is already restless, the extra shaking might disrupt its magma chambers. The biggest caldera-forming eruptions in Japan's history, like Kikai, involved massive magma movement. Such events can be tied to broader tectonic upheaval in the region. This doesn't mean every big earthquake leads to a new caldera, but in areas with active or semi-dormant volcanic systems, intense seismic activity sometimes foreshadows major volcanic events. 2016 Kumamoto earthquake. Although the 2016 Kumamoto earthquakes weren't directly about forming a new caldera, they struck close to Mount Aso. These powerful quakes, the strongest registering magnitude 7.0, caused landslides and road collapses in the caldera region. Volcanologists and seismologists feared the quake swarm could affect Aso's volcanic activity. While the link between that particular quake and an eruption wasn't huge, it illustrated how dangerously close large faults and active volcanic systems can be in Japan. It's like having two ticking clocks, earthquakes and volcanoes, often operating in the same neighborhood. Japanese people living and thriving in calderas. When we think of Japan, most of us picture bustling cities like Tokyo or the iconic peak of Mount Fuji. But Japan is also home to quite a few calderas, massive volcanic craters formed by ancient eruptions. What's surprising is not just the incredible landscapes these calderas create, but also how many Japanese communities have settled and flourished in these unique and sometimes challenging environments. One prime example is around the Aso Caldera in Kumamoto Prefecture, on the island of Kyushu. This caldera is massive, and it's still considered an active volcanic region, which means earthquakes and smoke plumes aren't all that unusual. Despite that, people have lived here for centuries, taking advantage of the rich volcanic soil to grow crops and raise livestock. Volcanic soil tends to be nutrient-rich, allowing for farming communities to produce some of the tastiest vegetables and rice in the region. Plus, the area's geothermal activity also means plenty of hot springs, onsen, that draw visitors from all over Japan. Instead of viewing the volcano as a threat, many locals embrace it as part of daily life, adapting to occasional warnings or mild eruptions with a calm sense of resilience. Over in Kagoshima Prefecture, there's Sakurajima, an active volcano that used to be its own island before an eruption connected it to the mainland. Technically, Sakurajima sits in a larger caldera known as the Ira Caldera. Tourists flock there to see the constant billows of smoke and the dramatic landscape. Meanwhile, local residents have taken advantage of the volcanic ash to cultivate hearty daikon radishes and other unique produce. Sure, it's not always fun when ash rains down on your car or laundry, but the Kagoshima folks have turned ash collection and cleaning into a sort of daily ritual. Over time, the community has adapted by designing buildings and infrastructure that can handle the ash, demonstrating a creative spirit in the face of volcanic activity. Then there's Lake Toya in Hokkaido, another picturesque caldera that's since filled up with water, forming a stunning lake. The region is famous for its gentle climate, serene scenery, and, again, its fantastic hot springs. Local resorts take advantage of the natural beauty, offering lakeside onsen that give visitors a front-row seat to epic sunsets. People living around Lake Toya have built a thriving tourist industry, with boat tours, scenic walks, and even fireworks festivals during warmer months. It's a perfect example of how calderas can be harnessed for both natural resources and tourism. Culturally, these caldera communities often develop a close relationship with their natural surroundings. Traditional beliefs and festivals sometimes include rituals meant to appease or show respect to the volcano gods. It's not uncommon to find shrines perched on the slopes or crater rims where visitors pray for safety and good harvests. Living in a caldera means you're in constant contact with Earth's more dramatic side, steam vents, tremors, and the occasional volcanic rumble. But it also means you're part of a tight-knit culture that values preparedness and respect for nature's power. All things considered, Japanese people living in calderas are a testament to human adaptability and resilience. Yes, it can be risky living so close to a rumbling giant, but these areas offer so many benefits, from fertile land to geothermal wonders, that local communities have found ways to prosper. Whether it's farming in Aso's rich soil, fishing on the peaceful waters of Lake Toya, or taking a relaxing dip in the onsen of Kagoshima, life in a caldera can be surprisingly fulfilling. It's a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary places can become home when people learn to live in harmony with the incredible forces of nature all around them. Since Japan experiences both frequent earthquakes and volcanic activity, the government, local communities, and scientists have robust monitoring systems. Thousands of devices track ground motion, letting experts spot any unusual changes that might indicate magma movement or tectonic strain. Japan has one of the best earthquake early warning systems on the planet. Those few seconds of warning can shut down high-speed trains, factories, and alert people to duck and cover. The Japan Meteorological Agency, JMA, keeps close tabs on active volcanoes, issuing alerts and hazard maps. If a volcano shows signs of imminent eruption, residents are advised to evacuate high-risk zones. Japan's so beautiful and unique. Hot springs, lush farmland, mesmerizing lakes, and epic volcanic silhouettes against the skyline. Government efforts on such disasters. When it comes to natural disasters, Japan is basically on the front lines. From earthquakes and tsunamis to typhoons and volcanic eruptions, the country faces a non-stop barrage of Mother Nature's biggest hits. Luckily, Japan's government has had plenty of practice dealing with these challenges over the centuries. Today, they've got a whole toolbox of methods, like state-of-the-art technology, strict building standards, and community preparedness programs, to minimize damage and keep people safe. One big part of Japan's disaster strategy is its building codes. Because earthquakes are so frequent, the government introduced strict regulations on how new buildings should be constructed, including quake-proofing and seismic isolation designs. These fancy engineering solutions help structures sway rather than collapse when the ground starts shaking. While these methods can be expensive, it's an investment that ultimately saves lives and reduces the need for massive rebuilding in the aftermath of a quake. After major events, like the 1995 Kobe earthquake and the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, these codes were further refined, with each disaster providing lessons that went straight into updating national guidelines. Another crucial element is Japan's early warning systems. The Japan Meteorological Agency is always on alert, using a network of seismometers and other devices to detect the first signs of an earthquake or tsunami. Phones will blare alarms, TV screens flash warnings, and sometimes trains will even automatically shut down to prevent accidents. The government also tests these alerts through nationwide drills. It's not unusual for school kids to practice earthquake drills on a regular basis. Knowing what to do and where to go can be the difference between panic and a well-coordinated response. In areas prone to tsunamis, the government has funded massive seawalls and coastal defenses. While these aren't perfect and can't always stop a gigantic wave, they do buy time for people to evacuate. After the 2011 tsunami, many of these defenses were upgraded or built taller, but there's also been debate about how these massive constructions affect local environments and marine life. So it's a balancing act between safety and preserving coastal ecosystems. Local communities play a huge role too, often encouraged and supported by the government. Neighborhood associations hold regular workshops on disaster preparedness, teaching folks how to secure furniture, stock emergency kits, and find designated evacuation sites. The government also encourages volunteer groups that can jump into action after a disaster, providing first aid, food distribution, and emotional support. This community-focused approach ensures that help doesn't rely solely on professional responders, which can be stretched thin during a major crisis. Finally, the government invests heavily in research and development. Universities and specialized institutes study earthquake patterns, volcanic activity, and climate change effects. By understanding how these forces of nature behave, the government hopes to refine prediction models and improve preparedness plans. There's also plenty of international collaboration. Japanese researchers team up with experts from the US, Europe, and other countries that face similar challenges, sharing data and strategies. In a nutshell, Japan's government takes a proactive, tech-savvy, and community-based approach to tackling natural disasters. They learn from every major event and pump those lessons right back into policy changes, infrastructure projects, and emergency drills. It's not a foolproof system. Disasters are unpredictable and can be devastating, but these measures certainly help reduce the impact. Whether it's through better building codes, quick alerts, or empowered local communities, Japan continues to adapt and prepare, setting an example for the rest of the world when it comes to living with the ever-present threat of natural hazards. What about tourism and migration? Japan is known worldwide for its stunning cherry blossoms, futuristic cities, and rich cultural heritage. But living in an area that sits on the Ring of Fire isn't all postcard perfect. Earthquakes and tsunamis, like the devastating 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, can seriously shake up not just the land, but also the country's economy, tourism industry, and even the movement of people in and out of affected regions. When a big quake or tsunami hits, tourism often feels the impact pretty fast. News headlines and dramatic footage can make potential travelers pause and wonder if it's safe to visit. After the 2011 disaster, Japan saw a noticeable dip in international tourist arrivals. Concerns about radiation from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant leak also fueled worries, causing many travelers to cancel or postpone trips. Hotels, local tour operators, and souvenir shops in the affected areas, and even in places that weren't damaged, suddenly found themselves dealing with fewer visitors, which meant a big financial hit. Over time, though, Japan's tourism industry proved resilient. Government campaigns emphasized safety, and many travelers eventually returned to experience the country's unique mix of tradition and modernity. Migration patterns also shift when earthquakes and tsunamis strike. Some people living in coastal or quake-prone regions decide to move inland or even relocate to different parts of the country altogether. They might be spooked by the risk of aftershocks, tsunamis, or simply the emotional toll of living through such traumatic events. On the other hand, some regions see an influx of volunteers and workers coming in for reconstruction efforts, especially in the months and years following a disaster. These newcomers can help rebuild damaged areas, set up new businesses, or support local communities, bringing a fresh wave of energy and ideas to regions that desperately need it. Another interesting twist is how these disasters often galvanize the government and local communities to improve infrastructure and preparedness. After witnessing the havoc of a megaquake or tsunami, cities will invest in better seawalls, disaster shelters, and building codes, sometimes making them safer places to live than before. That in turn can attract people who appreciate the peace of mind that comes with well-planned evacuation routes and state-of-the-art detection systems. All things considered, earthquakes and tsunamis can cause a lot of immediate heartache and economic trouble for Japan, particularly in the tourism sector and among communities forced to rethink where they call home. Yet the country's track record shows a remarkable ability to bounce back and adapt, whether by reassuring visitors with solid safety measures or welcoming new faces during rebuilding efforts. Japan continuously demonstrates its resilience in the face of Mother Nature's occasional fury. The normalcy. Ultimately, calderas are a testament to Earth's dramatic processes. They remind us that our planet is alive under its crust, constantly churning molten rock, building mountains, and occasionally releasing energy in the form of earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. In Japan, this geologic restlessness is part of everyday life. Yes, it's risky. Yes, it can be terrifying. Ask anyone who's woken up to tremors or witnessed an ash-laden sky during an eruption. But it's also part of what makes Calderas in Japan aren't just fascinating geological features, they're living landscapes. They shape local culture, agriculture, tourism, and of course, the ever-present sense of respect for nature's power. Meanwhile, earthquakes are a constant reminder that we live on a planet that never stops moving. In the grand scheme, these two phenomena, calderas and quakes, are tied together by the tectonic forces that define Japan's entire existence. So, next time you find yourself soaking in an onsen near a caldera, sipping green tea while gazing at a smoking volcanic cone, remember, you're enjoying the serenity forged by millennia of cataclysmic events. That's Japan in a nutshell. Ancient, dynamic, and breathtakingly resilient in the face of Earth's unstoppable power. That's about the recent shaking in Japan. Leave a thumbs up if you liked our video today. Thanks for watching.